Da da da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes to get those notifications out. In the meantime, if you've never met me before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And today it was an inside day. I went out for a little while to get some groceries and I was right back in the house. It was a lot warmer than it was yesterday. But it made me take note that, I've really got to make sure that I've got all the right winter gear so that I can manage to, go for my evening walks if I want to, go out and about, not having a car, right? It's important for me to get outside, but it's important for me also to get out and about, whether it's visiting families or right? Going to the mall or just going to Safeway. It's just that interaction, even if it's with strangers. I went to the store today. I had a couple of interactions, really nice ones. Somebody who lives in my building, actually, two people who lived in my building, I had interactions with. And it's really, really nice that we're able to rub up against each other and, rub well. It's not always the case, but when it happens, it's really nice. It makes what doesn't rub well not hurt so bad. It kind of makes you kind of see and understand that, you don't have to have everybody liking you. And we all rub each other differently. We talked a little bit about this yesterday, how we sometimes don't rub each other well. We could absolutely love them to death and not rub somebody well. It's always in those experiences that we have, and unless we actually get to know the person and their experiences, right? That we can always find ways, right? Not intentionally find ways, but we always find ourselves in situations on occasion where we put our foot in our mouths, right? When we don't take note that somebody passed away or somebody's ill or somebody has a handicap, and then we make these comments that are derogatory. These are little things that you can get off your plate by just being aware of how you interact with strangers. Because if you have 100 little teeny weeny things come off the plate, that might equal something pretty major. And for people who do things in baby steps, people and it's how I did it, you know, it's just in that experimentation and allowing your curiosity to take you away a little bit, well, a lot, but manageable, right? You do it manageably and make changes in your life as you see that you might need those changes. I have no idea, right? In all honesty, how many different experiences I had that impacted me in a way that changed me, right? I would think when I was a kid and a teenager, it was probably probably quite often on a pretty regular basis. In this moment, I do it quite a bit too, but I initiate that change, right? It's in staying active, it's in setting those goals and working towards them. There's a little bit of that breath on the back of your neck saying, right, you got to get the bills paid, work harder, get this done, right? And there's that too. But you have to remember, if you let yourself fall behind in the bills, then that's going to make a whole bunch of big problems. And it's one of the lessons that I really appreciated that I learned, even though in this moment, right? I don't think sometimes that I manage well, but I think for where I'm at, in my life and in being able to do what I do and to apply so much time, right? And that effort because I don't have that stress, that I keep my household manageable, right? Manageable. And when you keep that manageable, it takes so much weight off of you, right? That you can apply in bigger problems or bigger aspects of what you're working towards. And every time you get that little hit of accomplishment of doing good, right? That you get more confident in yourself, right? You can take on better challenges. You understand that you're not going to break if you set the rules down, right? For highly sensitives, right, coming from dynamic families, we have a hard time saying no to ourselves because, we never felt that, that care was there, that attentive attention of what our needs were taken care of. And so, we do that for ourselves. And, we pay a price in that because we'll go to great lengths to get around problems that will stress us out or staying away from people that stress us out or in anything in our own experience that we're not comfortable with, right? That we avoid. And when you avoid something, it's not like it's going away. Oh my goodness. It's not going away. So when you avoid something, you're adding a problem to the plate that's staying in the back of your mind, right? Those bills that got to get paid. And then you're just thinking of that when you're trying to get other things done, and it brings you down. And because your mind can chew on a small problem and make a small problem a big problem, I've come to learn it's best just to avoid those problems. Those bills are due. Can we just get those bills paid and get that stress off of us? And it's one of the best lessons I could have learned. It's really scary when you fall behind in the responsibilities of being a citizen, right? And I don't want to irk my responsibility, right? But sometimes it's unavoidable. We find ourselves in situations where maybe those funds are just not available, or those resources or those people are not available to lift you in those moments. And we find that, we do fall behind. It could be, something like, a pet passing away, and then, yeah, it's the cremation and having the cat put down, or the dog. I'm saying cat because I just lost my cat. And that's an expense, right? And that's often an unexpected, more often than not, an unexpected event. And not only an unexpected event, but very heartbreaking, very full of grief. It's very, right? It's not an experience that in any way is controllable, because it is what it is. And when we tie our emotions up in our life, we, right, and it shows us well, right, when we do those things, right? But at the same time, right, it'll put you behind in things, and we don't know where these hiccups are going to be in life. A lot of it, I just ride those waves. I go, everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. And not just sit on hope that it's just going to fall into my lap, do everything possible to resolve those issues. But at the same time, everything's going to be okay, right? And that helps to alleviate that worry and stress, right? Worry and stress that, if we had paid, I'm using this just as an example, if we had paid those bills, right? Then those issues would not even be on our mind. We'd be able to focus on other things. We wouldn't be making something that could be something small, right? And turning it into something massive. And then when you do have to put your cat down, right, and you have to divvy out that money, you're going through that grief and you've just added to the plate, right? I'm just using this as an example, you guys, right? So, it's not fortune telling in what you need. It's just paying attention. It's common sense. And sometimes we don't get those lessons. And sometimes, it's in those mistakes and hiccups and wrenches that get thrown into our life that finally we get these little tidbits of information, you know, that help us out. Me even being online, I learned so much, and not just learn in the lessons, but just learn through other people's experiences. And being a content creator, I also, right, I enjoy the channels that I watch, but I'm also interested in how other people come to the table. We're all uniques, right? We're all uniques, and taking interest in somebody, though I might not ever meet them, I might meet somebody with some of those same experiences, some of those same traits. And because, right, I paid attention, that I was involved in somebody else's content, that I might have a little bit of tidbit to pass along. It's like trying a good product and you go, oh my goodness, did you just try this new da 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 shampoo? It's so amazing. It makes your hair so fluffy and soft, and right. And that word gets around, and something turns into magnificence out of that. You recognize possibly a really good product, something that will ease your life up a little bit, right? And for lots of us, in not having large communities, when you live vicariously, right, through, it's not, right, it's reality. It's somebody's content. It's something they're bringing to the table. And even though it might be AI, it might be cartoons or something, you know it's those graphics that somebody created. It's the words that are being presented to the audience. It's the what do you call that, end caps, right, to be able to suggest the next piece of content that the person who chose this content might be interested in. There's lots of aspects of and just the curiosity, you know how somebody else is playing out their own story in their own life. And then, because people do express their lives and show their lives, and you get a good feel of things that are kind of flowing in and out of it, whether it's good or bad. They're bringing you along for that journey. It's right. It's almost like reality TV, but it is real, right? And especially, I watch those types, the metal detected group of guys going out digging in the ground, and clever girl who likes her horses and stuff. I'm not even a big horse fan, and yet I am obsessed with two channels that are almost entirely about horses, right? And I find that curious. And in that curiosity, right, that might lead me somewhere else down the road that might give me a little bit more insight. I'm just going to assume in the moment until I'm course corrected in that idea is that's just right. My ancestors surfacing and going, oh my goodness, I don't have to go out to the stables to see my horses. I can just turn on YouTube. Right? Because this is new, isn't it? This digital age. This is something that 50 years ago, well, maybe 50 years ago, because we had the Jetsons and Lost in Space, and right? Not quite yet Star Trek, but it was moving in a direction of technology and digital, and but say 100 years ago, digital age would not have even been a thought. It wouldn't have been something that we would have understood. It wouldn't have been a concept that even we would be able to explain. And if we could explain it, we'd be like looked at like we were off the rocker. We would have been sent from the villages and right? And or being called witches. How's that? Right? But the thing is, that is so real in what is moving forward. And, in not having those concepts or ideas, right? How could anybody in their own imagination possibly create a religion in that? It's been done, hasn't it? There's a lot of religions out there that are now based on AI and the digital age. And, I, for myself, being an agnostic, I think, well, what if we, right, like what we're doing, bringing back the thylacine and the dodo bird, and we just brought back some little bear cub. I can't remember what it was called. We just brought that back. The Chinese are working on bringing the mammoth back. And we have all these cross sections, right? The what do you call it? The liger and donkeys and these new species of monkeys and fish and so many new species evolving in the world. And I kind of hang out in some of those discoveries because I do find it curious. So when these things become known, lots of times they're suggested to me, right? And I used to say, it's in our evolution that a lot of these answers of when it comes to spirituality, religion, I believe that those will be all answered down the road in creating the best human being I possibly can. That's what I'm doing, and I'm not looking that far down the road. And I believe that if, I was meant to be doing something other than creating the best human being I possibly can, that I would feel differently in that. Right? Of course, I feel differently. Of course, there's changes coming into my life. But remember, just a half a dozen years ago, I was an agnostic. I wasn't even too sure if there was a true God. And that's the truth. I believe there's something, but it's so far down the road in our evolution. And if we're bringing back all these species right now, did anybody ever consider that maybe something is bringing back this species, right? We are moving in a direction where we're going to be able to answer our own questions, right? It's not about moving along with the computer, being as smart as the computer. It's about being able to use these resources and tools to better make some movement for the world, right? And this is where we're planted. And I we're going to stop right here. We're going to send some good cheer out. Get to your destination, be a false alarm, turn around, go right back. Oh my goodness, that's a few times today with the fire trucks. In fact, yes, I have a fire truck still in the front of my building too. So yeah, but you send out that good cheer. You don't know whether or not it's going to hit, but what if it did hit? What if it did make a difference? Okay, you guys, I've lost my train of thought with that fire truck. It happens. It happens sometimes. So I'm just gonna pull myself off that topic unless it pops right back into my. Oh, I was talking about extinctions and species, bringing back species and stuff. It's something I've given thought to. What if what's going on right now is just in that attempt, right, to get us where we're supposed to be in creating the best human being we possibly can? And that, right, that being I possibly can, it's got to be me in the moment. Cindy, no, because I'm going to assume it's going to be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years down the road. That's how confident I am that everything is going to be okay. Everything is always okay. It's just in what we don't know, we, right? We drive ourselves crazy in trying to know, and then getting back to, right, making something big out of something small. That's what happens when we look too far into the future, because in this moment it looks so big, so far out, so unattainable that, right, we're scaring ourselves in that. And we are making something that might be very tiny and insignificant if we were at that point, right? But we're making it into something super big because we don't understand, because we're stressing out about something that hasn't happened yet. And then saying that it kind of contradicts about, staying on top of the bill, right? But that's the idea, about not to make something small into something big. But if you're doing it in baby steps, right, sometimes you can manage to be okay, right? It doesn't always have to be dazzle and amaze, popcorn and cotton candy or sprinkles, right? But just to have that comfortable sometimes, it is and can be very beneficial in calming the system down. And sometimes it doesn't make any difference in the speed. It's only because your system's calmed down that you're able to concentrate on other stuff because you paid attention to getting those bills paid, taking care of those little problems that you think, oh, I'll just put that off till tomorrow. I'll just put that off tomorrow until something major happens and you need that vehicle or you need that mechanical piece or that power tool, right? Or you need that extra $300 to cover the vet bill, right? And, when these things happen, they stress us out. But if it's kind of, right, taken care of, right, it doesn't have to be magnificently, just as long as nobody's knocking on your door and the roof doesn't fall in on you. If you stay on top of all the little problems, or just stay on the problems, period, as they pop up, right? There's a good one, right? Whatever problems, if they are. I know lots of times if it's a big problem you can't cover it, but there's lots of problems going on. There's always something you can work on, right? There's always something that you can work on. And then, that movement alone will open up an opportunity to make a little bit more movement in something else. And sometimes it's just in that motivation, right? Sometimes it's in that courage that we need to step forward and say, okay, we gotta get this done. It's going to be uncomfortable. I'm not going to like it, but we'll make that doctor's appointment. We'll go see that specialist, or we'll I don't know. Whatever uncomfortable thing is in the moment that's in our life and that we have to deal with it. We can just get that off the plate, right? Get as much off the plate as you can, especially at Christmas time, right? You don't want to add on to that heaviness, right? If you need to get ahead a little bit, do that, right? Take that load off of yourself. And that might benefit for January 1st if you have any New Year's resolutions going on. Then you're not going into your New Year's resolutions behind, right? And playing catch up in order, right? Put yourself in all that stress. You're super stressed and you're dieting at the same time and you're at the gym, right? How much of a chance are you giving yourself to succeed on that diet? Yeah, that's food for thought myself. I'm pleased. I tried on my new winter coat. I thought it was going to be too small and it fits perfect. And I says, okay, Cindy, put your vest on and try it on just to make sure. And it was good. And I was so happy. So I'm going to get on the scale tomorrow and see how well I did. Okay, you guys, let's get into a card. Just a couple of minutes and then we're going to call it a night. I don't know if there was anything in there for anybody, but I'll come into my live again. Um yeah, and watch it again. Yeah, I might have to. Okay, you guys. Let's pull a card. Here we go. You guys. You guys, I thought I was going to take a little break from this word. I'm not disappointed that we have this word. I'm not disappointed that we have this word. I'm just curious as to how often this word comes up when I pull a card. I even trimmed the card, right? Because I thought, well, maybe it's not the right measurement. I thought I measured them all perfectly. And then I took my straight knife and I kind of took a little touch off of the sides, right? Because it kept popping up so much, right? Community offers up a sense of belonging. And that is such a true thing. And, lots of us think that, we're incapable of carrying on a conversation sometimes, even to get to know somebody. And the idea is to take the interest of that other person, Lots of times we're nervous, we'll overtalk, we'll stumble over ourselves to impress somebody. And in that nervousness, we do that. And we find it difficult sometimes just to sit and to listen to somebody. But the trick into, right, building community or being a part of a community is being able to get yourself into that conversation. And sometimes also it's that other person too, because, if you're not socially adapt, if you're socially awkward, which is pretty common, right, and highly sensitives and empaths, that we tend to be kind of hanging out by ourselves and stuff. But it's important to be social, right? Talk about evolution, right? We talk about extinction. If we're not being social, how do we meet our partners? How do we have babies? How do we repopulate the world? How do we stop ourselves from becoming extinct? I would much rather evolve into something, well, just evolve into whatever is next, right? And that just comes from the change. But to get back to this word community, the idea is to get to know people, right? We don't have to delve into everybody's, right, life story. We don't have to make them our best friends or anything, but sometimes in having that company, that camaraderie, sometimes in what we do, or when we get so heavy in what we're doing that we need a little bit of fun, a little bit of that social interaction of rubbing with other people. And the idea is to get to know enough about somebody, right? That you can carry on a conversation, right? That you can get in on a conversation. Lots of people use the small talk, right? I know lots of people are not big fans of small talk, me included. I'm not a big fan of the small talk, but I get excited sometimes in those situations where I find myself in the small talk, because it's usually coming from somebody who's having a hard time being social, being, right, being able to interact with other people. And it's so easy sometimes, right, to get on the elevator and say, "Oh, how's the weather outside?" Right? Or, "Are you having a nice day?" Right? "Oh, what a nice outfit." Right? And it is in those small considerations that people can reveal a little bit about themselves in their own way. And sometimes you have to lead the conversation. But if you're learning, looking to find community, it's in taking interest in somebody else and getting to appreciate, that they might have something to contribute. But in that shyness sometimes, right, sometimes all it comes out is, "It's a nice day today, isn't it?" Right? But if that's all that can be surfaced, right, if you're lucky, maybe you can be with somebody who's going to appreciate where you're at and understand that you're just looking to have a conversation, right? It's like, it's not about hitting on somebody and boyfriend, girlfriend, or anything like that, though it could lead into that. It's like those, but you don't want to be doing the one liners either, right? It's about really taking an interest with somebody. I have been within a few communities myself. I try to be I try to be leader, or I at least very least I used to, right? I'd have to create create my own community and be creative in the benefits of that community, whether it was what we were doing, right? Where were we hanging out, if it was at the beach or the clubs, or right, going for picnics and stuff. You have to find those people, right, that you would want to hang out with. And the thing is, if you are only talking about the weather, you're most often going to be hanging out with the weather people, the people, other people that can just do that small talk. But if you can get to learn something, right, and take an interest in somebody, right? I don't like golf, but if I'm with a couple of guys talking about golf, I can get myself into that conversation, right? I can get myself, I know enough to get myself into that conversation. And it's something I learned just because I paid interest in somebody else. Oh, what's that move? What rod is that? What do you use? How come that rod looks different from that rod? And what's that big fluffy thing at the end of it? And you, right? You people love to explain what they're doing and what things are, right? And you're doing them a favor too, because they get to express in their knowledge in something that they care about. And at the same time, you benefit because you're learning something about them, because you can see the excitement, you can see hear the enthusiasm, you can feel it. And also you're learning about the clubs and the fluffy things, and right, nine hole that, if it's even just one small thing that can get you into a conversation at a party, right? When you go out for dinner, when you don't quite get along with that one brother in law, but he loves golf, right? Sometimes you can turn an enemy into a friend. And that's the truth, too. Oh my goodness. I know where this word wants to take me. I do. Right? Community. Community offers up a sense of belonging, right? You guys belong with me. If you enjoy this kind of content, if you, right, appreciate the silly ways that I express myself in my own limitations quite often, but in the creation of the best human being I possibly can, I think I'm doing okay, right? I think I'm doing okay. And if I'm not, I still know everything's going to be okay. Okay, you guys, have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow. I can't.